Welcome to the Story Engine podcast, where we teach you how to make marketing easier, more powerful, and fun through storytelling. I'm your host, Kyle Gray. Each week we learn from top entrepreneurs, influencers, and world changers on how to share your story through content, copywriting, and speaking, and how to make your message your most powerful marketing tool. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Story Engine podcast. My name is Kyle Gray, and today I'm here with Garrett Gunderson. Garrett, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, it's good to be here with you, man. It's going to be fun.
So, I like to start this off by just introducing the audience to you a little bit, and I would love to hear about a defining moment in your life that has led you to creating Wealth Factory, and then, of course, tell us a little bit about it, just in case anybody listening or watching doesn't know you.
I think what started me out in it, like if I go to a defining moment early on, the earliest I can remember is I was in kindergarten in Miss Ashcroft's class, and we were doing this project where you got to drink your chocolate milk, but then you turned your chocolate milk carton into a replica of your home. And for me, I think it was my best art project to date. I still remember it. Like, I couldn't wait to go show my mom. And then she said, look, here's the deal. I'm going to take these from you, and you go home and memorize your address, and when you memorize it, I'm going to give it back to you. Well, I was a little boy, so I went home and played. I didn't even remember whatsoever. The next day, I think every girl in the class got theirs back, remembered to do the assignment. Well, all the boys were like, oh, crap, we forgot. So then the next day, most kids memorized it. Well, I went out to the front of the house. It was freezing cold. So I looked real quick. It was 326 Carson. That's all I had to remember. And I went back, and I totally forgot, right? I think I transposed the numbers or missed some things. So now it's like the final day of the week. It's Friday, so me and this one other kid are the only ones left. So I'm like really focused in on it. I really feel like I got it dialed in. And then we come back, and he gets his right out the gate. So now the entire class is looking at me, and I freeze. So I can't get this thing. So she grabs it off the shelf and throws it in the trash. And dude, in that moment, I told myself, I'm stupid. Like, I really thought I was stupid. So I think when some people get that belief, they kind of crumble and they kind of prove that. For me, it was like trying to prove everything but that. And I thought, at one point I got in my head, like, what would show the world that I'm not stupid? And I don't think this is the best ambition. It was just the start. Was, well, if I could have $1 million, that mean I'm not stupid, right? So it's not accurate into the real world, but in my mind, at some time, maybe as a 14-year-old or 13-year-old, that's what I came up with, and I launched my first business at 15.
That's really cool. And has this it's funny because there's these little like defining moments in our lives that keep coming back, we keep revisiting, or how has that story impacted you from maybe 15 and beyond starting businesses, and have you done some work to kind of integrate it and rebalance it in your life?
Oh, I've done some work on that for sure. Like one of the biggest pieces of work I did was I recognized that when things weren't going my way, I felt out of control, they weren't working the way I wanted, is I would throw a temper tantrum, and I didn't really recognize this until my very first assistant. One day she wrote me this letter. And she says, hey, if I'm going to continue to work here, you're going to have to do something about your temper. And I was like, dude, I never thought of myself as having a temper at all. But if something didn't go right, I used to get really like animated. I'm loud anyway. And I never yelled at her, but the fact that I'd be upset stressed her out. And so what would go on is every time life wasn't going how I wanted it to, the 5-year-old took over. The 5-year-old that thought he was stupid came in and was like, throwing a tantrum. And so I'm living my life this way until I went through the advanced course of Landmark and recognized that this had happened. And that was the beginning. And then later, one of my friends, Gary, he and I had this accountability call every week, and we kind of coach each other as peers. He recognized, because he had done a lot of work, he goes, dude, you need to have a conversation with your 5-year-old. So he made me go get a picture of myself as a 5-year-old, right? And I had to set it on the couch on this pillow. And he's like, you need to tell him that you're capable. But you got to speak to the terms a 5-year-old to understand. So first, I'm uncomfortable. I'm on the phone. And I'm trying to talk to a picture of myself. I'm feeling embarrassed as hell. And every time I go to talk, he goes, dude, do you really think a 5-year-old knows these vocabulary words? I'm like, damn it, no. So finally, I start doing this real conversation with the 5-year-old, and I start crying. And my wife happens to walk out of the bedroom at that time, sees me bawling. Like just bawling, because I'm realizing like every time I'm beating myself up, it's like I'm beating up this 5-year-old, like I'm really getting present to it. And she thought there was something major going on in our lives, right? Like, are we okay financially? Like, and I was just having this major breakthrough of like recognizing that that was an initial ambition, but it was a limiting belief. And that I would be very, rather than be fully expressed, I was very like limited and controlled. Am I smarter than the person I'm talking to on a topic? Great, then I'll speak up. If I'm not, I'm just gonna be quiet. So I felt introverted at times. I felt like even awkward in social settings at times because of that incident with the milk carton. And really doing that work and having that conversation was so healing that even in one of my offices, I still have a picture of me as a 5-year-old, just as a kind of a reminder.
That's really cool. And I think a lot of us all of us have these stories that are defined by us. And you mentioned, your first conclusion was like, if I make $1 million, that's what will make me smart. And you now with Wealth Factory, you're working with hundreds of entrepreneurs around money. And I would love to know what a lot of these people coming to you, if they have what are some of the most common kind of inner child stories with money that people bring that a lot of entrepreneurs are facing right now that you like help correct?
Look, man, entrepreneurs feel broken in a lot of ways, right? Tons of them were high school dropouts or no college education or had a rough relationship with a parent that was important to them or a major incident. And so a lot of them are trying to fill that void with business success. The problem is, what is success? Like if we let society define success, a lot of times it's how much you have. Do you have more than everyone else? Are you on the cover of a magazine, having all these accolades? It's so external, and that external validation is never truly fulfilling because it's hard to love yourself if you're looking for other people's approval. And look, like all you have to do is go to social media to see there's plenty of people that are really, really good at being negative and only looking at what's wrong. And so entrepreneurs, when it comes to money, they usually look primarily at revenue because that's kind of the ego bragging rights and not as much about what they keep and if they're building a business that's congruent with what success really means to them. Like I really encourage entrepreneurs to use money as a benchmark, but always have a second benchmark for success at a minimum. Right? Which could be anything from quality of life to, time away from the business to, just things that really fulfill them. I'm taking up archery right now. I'm taking up fishing right now. I just did a cooking lesson last night. I have an archery lesson coming up. I'm doing stand-up comedy on a regular basis. I'm looking for things that are really cool hobbies that actually can enhance the experience and quality of life along the way, because I never really plan on retiring. But I had to stop comparing myself to others, and I had to really get clear about what success meant to me and make sure that I was creating a game worth winning, because just working harder, just making more money, I was checking off those lists, but I'd always find someone that had more. And I would find jealousy, I'd find envy, I'd find that, I'd look at them differently or treat them differently or want something from them versus just saying, no, let me get grounded. Like, what is it? Like, how can I love myself? Like, how can I love my life? And what are the things that are ultimately important? Not like, because if I look back in my 20s, if I would have told you what was important, I was pretty clear. It was like business. Like when people say, hey, you live in Utah, do you ski? I'm like, no, I own a business. They're like, well, what about what are your other hobbies? I'm like, business? I'm like, how do they not get it? I just work, and when that's done, I think about work. And when I go on vacation, I'm not on vacation, I'm thinking about work the whole time. And back then when I would go to church, I thought about work. Now I can actually leave the computer at the office, not have the cell phone at night, and actually feel like I can create this cool quality of relationship that has a presence versus a distraction, right? So when it comes to money, most entrepreneurs are kind of a mess when it really comes down to it. They're stuck on this treadmill thinking if they work harder, that it's always going to pay off, but hard work with the wrong philosophy can still equal bankruptcy. They're like on that treadmill where they run faster, they don't always get further ahead. And honestly, they think that if they just make more money, it makes everything better. And that's great if they can continue making more money by adding value. But what if they could actually just keep a lot more of what they make and have a lot more stability and security? Because if they're married, usually their spouse feels like they're a little bit too risky, and the spouse is looking for a little bit of safety and security. And at Wealth Factory, we help them get economically independent so that they can be supporting each other without compromise.
On top of that, as far as like people's strategies with money, I think a common one these days is kind of put a bunch into Betterment or some broad allocations.
Some robo-advisor or index fund.
And you've got a lot of really unique ways that people can use the money that their business is making, or I assume even in a non-business, just a salary situation. What are some of the ways that you think people can utilize their money better?
Well, this especially works for business owners, but it could work for anyone. Before they're risking money or locking it away in a retirement plan, we're like, why not just be more efficient with it? Why not keep more of what you make? And there's 4 I's to do that. One is the IRS, especially business owners, 93% overpay tax. That's money that's rightfully theirs. They just aren't in the know. Second one is interest. This applies to pretty much anyone with a loan. If they have more than one loan, it's like an 80% chance they're overpaying on their interest. If they haven't restructured, renegotiated, figured out if they have underperforming assets that could pay that off and improve cash flow, there's so much money that's in that. The third I is investments. There's tons of non-performing fees. That's why something like Betterment or index funds becomes really popular. There's expense ratios, 12B1 fees if it's in a retirement plan. There's legal fees, admin fees. All this stuff adds up, and it confiscates massive amounts of wealth. But more importantly, market changes confiscate a lot of wealth, and people unfortunately participate in a downside they don't need to if they know how to have protection mechanisms. And then the fourth I is insurance, which a lot of people just have duplicate coverages, improper structure, and therefore they're paying the insurance company more than is necessary. And so we're really good at showing them how to get that money back, because if you could boost your bottom line by 10% or more through a few hours of knowledge and maybe a week's worth of execution, like that could save you 10, 20, or 30 years of just scrimping and saving and sacrificing, trying to build up that amount of cash flow that you could get because of that insight. So I'm an efficiency nerd. I love finding cash and then putting it back into their lives. They can reinvest it in the quality of life, they can reinvest it in their business, and I feel like business owners have a really cool advantage that they could grow that business and see really a lot bigger returns than most stock markets, because stock markets are already pretty established companies, where most small businesses still have a lot of room for growth. They haven't saturated a market yet.
I love that, and I think a lot of business owners never consider these things because, most of the time they're worried about, again, revenue, or like, how do I bring in more revenue? How do I solve a problem? They're usually good at one particular thing or a couple of things, and managing their finances is usually the thing that they want to do the least.
They know that they should do it, but it always falls to the bottom of the task list, understandably, because there's horrendous advice out there. Because most of the time it's the pain of, I have to spend less and enjoy life less, which I'm against. I'm about living wealthier along the way. That's why efficiency is so important. And there's so much conflicting advice out there. They're like, what do you listen to or what do you do?
Mm-hmm. So you've been talking about living life along the way and some of the hobbies that you're doing right now. I would love to hear, so you were mentioning even before we got on the show, talking about stand-up comedy. And I think it's really interesting because you also, one of the main growth drivers for your business is speaking on stage and presenting your ideas, which can make a really big impact and share. I would love to hear about how your work in comedy right now is impacting kind of your presenting on stage, and how is that evolving? Because it's fun to see one of your core business skills and then a side passion really synergizing.
Yeah, I spoke at this event, Mastermind Talks, back in 2014. And then I've been doing roundtables at it ever since. But this year I actually did stand-up comedy. So I did a roundtable one day teaching, and at the end of the event I did stand-up comedy. And someone else was in the crowd from Go Abundance, Mike McCarthy, and he had me speak at his event the year before, and he's like, asked me to come back this year, and he says, why don't you speak, but then would you do stand-up comedy? So I'm actually doing stand-up sets at events I'm speaking at. I've done it at some of our events, not most of them. But yes, by doing stand-up, one, it was uncomfortable. I was nervous. I wasn't sure how it would work. It's a different skill set I'm developing. So it's good to kind of get uncomfortable. You grow a lot that way. And it was like releasing of endorphins after doing it that first time. So now I'm integrating it more into my speaking. One of our mutual friends, Reagan Archibald, I said, I've spoken at 3 or 4 of his events. It's like half comedy, half content, but people enjoy it a lot. They'll actually listen to finance at a totally different level with it. So I want to be the most impactful speaker in money and finance and history. And the way to do that, I feel, is make it more entertaining so it's less threatening, it's more digestible so that people can get value. So I'm turning a hobby that's very near and dear to me because it was something that connected me to both sides of my family, the Gunderson side and the Aquino side, my mom and dad's side, because they used to, from the time I was a kid, say, oh, Garrett's here, why don't you get around and tell jokes? And I tell the whole family jokes. And even when my grandpa got like community awards, he's like, oh, my grandson tells funny jokes, come on up here. And so I realized it was this familial thing. And actually, it's funny because right when I started doing stand-up, my wife saw I got the bug. She goes, next thing I know, we're going to be traveling. You're going to be traveling. I'm like, no, I'm just doing it in Utah. Like, honestly, days later, I got offered to do something at the Mesa Theater in Grand Junction. It was right after Thanksgiving where my family on the Gunderson side was having Thanksgiving in Grand Junction. So I said, oh, yeah, we're going. So I booked flights for everyone. She goes, see, I could already feel it. Here we are. But I got to have almost everyone but my grandma from that side in the crowd. I did 5 of my 20 minutes just on making fun of them. They were hysterically laughing. So like I've got this legacy connection to it, but I also can use it in what I do to really get a message across that I think is imperative for people to understand their finances in a non-threatening way.
I really like that. And what you've done really well with your speaking is you've positioned yourself as very different than most kind of financial advisors or anyone in that space. And I've worked with a lot of people that it becomes very dull and dry. And through, I think, your speaking and presenting and probably just your methods, you've really differentiated yourself in a crowded and extremely competitive market. And I would love to know kind of how Wealthfront has evolved and how you've found your unique voice and your unique position in this marketplace. And maybe there's some nuggets that other people in different industries could use to differentiate themselves.
And I'm still feeling like we're trying to connect who we are online to who we are in person. Because I once did this video, and I don't know if you know Ian Stanley, but he does stand-up and he's a copywriter, and he's like, yeah, I saw the guy on video, and it's not Garrett, it's Garrett trying to be what the world wants, because he'd seen me speak in person. And I realized I was just a little bit more formal, not as much like humor, not as easy. And so I'm looking at like, I don't want Wealth Factory to ever feel corporate, because I don't ever want to take Wealth Factory corporate. Like, Wealth Factory isn't here for money management. You can go to Betterment, or you can go to Wealthfront, or you can go to these other organizations or robo-advisors, and they'll manage your assets and invest your money. We're here to get their financial house in order, create economic independence so they have enough cash flow to cover their basic expenses, and change their family's financial future and financial destiny, because they can build a legacy that lasts. That lights me up, right? So even though any consultant, if they come and look at our organization, like, oh, you'd make so much more money. I'm like, yes, but you think that, but we'd have to give up our core values to do it. So at Wealth Factory, I like that we can have a little playfulness. I like our culture here within our organization. I love that almost every month we're doing a wealth acceleration workshop at our headquarters where we're at right now. We've got legacy events, sole purpose events. We've got strategic business forums. Like, we're doing 2 to 3 workshops per month here. And in that, people get to see our team, and that there's joking and that there's fun, but that they're really good at their craft, and they're here because they love it, not because they have to be here to get a paycheck. Because honestly, we're more of a production-based economy than time and effort. There's not a lot of salaries in this firm, but there's a lot of people making 6 figures. So it's because when they contribute to the bottom line, we share in that. We give them unlimited upside potential without the downside of being an owner, which includes cash flow issues, or if this building were to flood, or if there's an issue, there's things that happen with a business owner. So at Wealth Factory, we're really looking to serve the right customer that is willing to do the work. Like, I got to have lunch with one of the people who just joined our program today. He flew in because he was dealing with some stuff that he wanted to get done before he came to a workshop. And I just happened to get done with my filming early, so we had lunch and got to know a lot about him. And that's what I love that we do, is like, I get to meet people. I would say of the people I spend the most time with, I met 2/3 of them through going through my program. Like, that's cool. You don't get that with a mutual fund, You don't get that with traditional investments, but you get that with a program that's working with people to actually get implementation and results.
I love that you say, you get to meet people, and that's what lights you up. That's one of the reasons I love this show. That's one of the reasons I'm also a big content creator. I love doing a lot of writing, making videos, and all kinds of things like that. And just walking through your office, you've shown me you've got like this really cool film studio set up too. And you're prolific. And I want to hear about kind of your plans for your podcast. But first, I think, tell me, you've got a great video studio set up just next door, and you're doing a lot of recording. How do you decide what you make, how you put it together, and what's your process for really creating great content that's spreading this online brand?
We have an awesome marketing team. We have a CMO who's a business partner who really thinks through things even deeper than I do. We've got 2 copywriters, we've got a web developer, and we got a customer service person. So they're really good and in touch with all the issues that are going on, not only in the marketplace, because they read so much, but also and research so much, but all the feedback we're getting from people that we're reaching out to. Because Wealth Factory, even though we want 1 million people to be economically independent, I'm doing that by licensing my content to even other financial firms that share our values. The way that we're casting our net wide is everything from our weekly publications and our video courses. So we had a video course on step-by-step way to economic independence. Well, there's this one topic inside of there called cash flow banking, where you kind of cut out the middleman, you rig the game more in your favor, where it's rigged against you, you earn interest rather than pay it, and it's been kind of my never fail me strategy from the time I was 19 years old. And we'd get tons of feedback of people wanted more. So I ended up filming a separate course of 42 videos on that, right? And that was a team, like our whole team came together and said, I feel like this is something we need, right? Or another thing is, people were, when they think about scaling business, were running too fast and running out of steam and harming themselves, or finding that they were being eaten up by their business rather than having it improve their life. And so we filmed the course on that. So I get a lot from the team. And then I still keep an oar in the water by doing 1-day immersions. So I do these 1-day immersions where people hire me just for the day to work through their chaos, work on their creation, and I get a lot of understanding of what people are dealing with in those 1-day things. Because I don't like to do the one-on-one follow-up. I've got an amazing team that's way better at it than I am, because I want to stay on the creation side. But that helps me understand it. Now, today when I filmed for 3 hours. I filmed the video for an event that I can't be in physical attendance, so I did a video for it. I filmed a lot of social media because I'm starting to actually do more social media stuff since I've neglected it my entire life. I'm hesitantly getting into it, to be candid, but the social media firm asked my opinion on a ton of stuff, so I just did really short segments on that. I filmed a lot for our existing members, the people that are working with us, on all the additional benefits and the workshops and the things that are included in what they do that we didn't announce, which is exciting for me to do, right? So like today wasn't as much content creation, it was just kind of connecting with a lot of people. But right now, like last year we refilmed a ton. And a lot of it was version 3 of some of our things, so I could make it really current and up to date. And some was just version 2, and one of the courses was just the very first time we did it. But that was about, I would say, 75 hours of edited content last year. And I look at most of that as like, it was supplemental resources for people that are getting one-on-one from us. So that's kind of it's a collaboration. But right now, writing my book, there's just so much new content to share. And this content I'm writing right now, like you could research it on Google and so much of it doesn't exist, even the terminology. And so I expect the next book to be my perennial bestseller. The main kind of key book that's like the Rich Dad Poor Dad was for 20 years, or the Total Money Makeover for Ramsey. Like this is the change the game book. This is the reinvent the industry book.
I think that's really cool, especially since you're creating so many things and you've been able to build a team of outside of your core kind of office team. You have so many different content creators working with you. And you mentioned before we got on camera a little bit about the challenges of having so many people working with you, but staying true to your own voice. And I'd love to hear about how you manage that and some of the ways that you make sure that now only 100% Garrett's coming through.
So when Wealth Factory writes an email, it's from builders at Wealth Factory. Builders means our writers and our team. If it's from me, they always send it to me even if they wrote it, and I get to rewrite and make it mine and in my voice. So that I think helps out. In writing my books, I enroll like Stephen Palmer, who wrote Killing Sacred Cows, our New York Times bestseller together. He's working with me on the new book, so he knows how I write and how I think and how to take my, like, I just put bullet points and he knows how to write that in a paragraph, but then I kind of rewrite it to make it more my voice because he's more intellectual than I am. He's more well-read than I am. I'm more kind of straightforward coal miner kid at times, even though I've got a lot of knowledge in the financial world. So I really feel like as my books have gone on, they're more and more my voice. And I wrote this thing called the Wealth Book, which is 140 pages. I think it's the best writing I've ever done. I wrote over 90% of it. Some of our writers at Wealth Factory wrote about 10% on some portions on legal and accounting because they did some interviews and everything. And so it's a little bit drier in that part because it's just stuff that people need to know, but it was like hard for me to write in a punchy way. And man, that took me a long time because I'm good at getting it 80% of the way, but to get it 100% of the way. So I ended up bringing in Stephen Palmer to help touch it up at the very end and paying him and had another editor. But that was all, like when you read that, it sounds like me from stage. You could tell it's directly from my voice. And I felt more connected to that project. And I also put video in that. And I think it was the first time that the writing was better than the video. So that was really cool on the content side. And the social media firm I hired, I rewrite everything that they write unless they just nail it. And a lot of times they say things a little differently than me or a little more harsh than me or not quite grasping the concept 100%. And I've met with a few of them and we talk, not every week if I'm out of town, but most weeks and talk through things. And then I film videos for them and then they take segments from that. So I really want to make sure it's authentic. I want to make sure that it, like, once again, I don't want to become so corporate that I'm disconnected from the people or disconnected from society, or all of a sudden our clients are numbers. If our clients just become numbers, it's not a business I want to own. I want to be connected to them, shaking their hand, hearing the story, building those relationships. Like I got an email 2 days ago from one of our clients, her name's Karen, and she just said, when are you come see the dream home? Because they, like, within weeks of our program, they got their dream home. You might know who her and her husband are because they're big in the health space, like really well known. And I was like, that's really cool. Like, that's cool that she sent me an email. And when I go to Phoenix, I'm gonna go see this dream home because I get to see it come to reality. I've made bets with my clients on how much tax we'd save. And if I won, they owed me a football game. So it's like I like that. I like that there's, like, people come to the Wealth Acceleration workshops, I'm leading half of it. So I'm meeting them, I'm shaking their hand, I'm hearing their story, right? Like there's a connection. I realize we're helping individuals. We're not dealing with spreadsheets. We're not dealing with robots.
Garrett, you've mentioned several times that you don't want to get too corporate. You want to keep this a nice kind of boutique operation. And a lot of what you're doing, your videos are around you, speaking's based on you. Your business is very much driven around your personality. A lot of entrepreneurs want to create something an asset that they can eventually sell one day. Yeah. But this doesn't exactly sound like your plan because you also don't want to get corporate. What's your long game vision for this, and how do you see yourself fitting in, especially like bringing in more elements of just living your life?
Well, the good news is we do have some other people at the firm that speak. A guy by the name of Tim Carden and Brandon Allen and Demi McConkey. So we've got speakers, and a lot of times I might be the first speaker at an event, and then a year later one of these guys come. So we can kind of build a long-term relationship when I go speak somewhere. But having the organization we do, I've freed up my time to create content, to write like books, and then to speak on stages, and so that's been a lot of fun. But my plan with Wealth Factory is to be an ESOP, employee stock option program, where the way we sell it is to the people that work here. And then we all just own it together so that we can all be entrepreneurial and they're entrepreneurs within the organization and they can benefit even more from the upside. If I were to sell this to another entity, there's a lot of ways they could monetize it that would be against the core values of who we are and what we stand for and the commitment we've made to our clients. And look, I look at Wealth Factory as like this art lab for me. Like, I don't consider myself as much an entrepreneur as an artist because I've been doing this for 20 years now in the same industry, just keep evolving. And so whether it's creating a wealth book, which you got a wealth book right over there if you grab it, like this to me is the art, right? Like we've got videos that we film. We got this great magazine that I think is just super sexy, and all the writing in it. Like putting that together to enhance the experience when that's not a marketing tool, that's an enrollment when someone's already enrolled, an experience tool. And so that's part of the artistry. Like, I want to continue to create this art for this organization, have it be as sustainable as it can. And so my CMO and I have this really healthy competition of who is more responsible for getting people in the program. Them doing all their media buys and all their marketing initiatives, or me being on stages. And that's one of the games I'd love to lose. I'd love for them to beat me, and they just keep gaining ground, and I love it because then I can say, well, I want to speak 10 to 12 times a year. And I want to be really selective with those stages that I'm on, so I can spend more time at my cabin and more time writing a book. I mean, when I wrote my first book, it took me years afterwards because I was so entrenched in operations and sales. I don't do the sales. We got a great sales team. I don't do operations. We have a COO. So I've been continuing to build the life I love by having an organization that I love, and I'm only doing the things most of the time that I really want to do and that I really enjoy.
So one of the most essential things about honing in and doing only what you enjoy, which I think is critical for an entrepreneur to be really successful and sustainable for sure. You've got to find that your vein, where you add the most value and you love what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I think it's really challenging. A lot of people don't make it, especially you get limited in operations and by your team.
Right.
And you've already mentioned you want to have employee stock options. You want to co-own this business with your team members. So you've got to get amazing people in here, and you've got to create. We've already talked a little bit about your culture, but I want to know, like, from the job application or from the first, time somebody touches your brand, as far as becoming a team member.
Yeah.
What's that process like, and how do you get the best people?
Because this is the game changer right here. The game changer is hiring the right people. I mean, IBM says an A teamer is 5,200% more productive than a B teamer. 5,200%. Where else you can get that return, right? Steve Jobs said he got 100-to-1 return on a good employee, right? Think about that, like that profitability. So this is what we do. They have to read Killing Sacred Cows and give a book report. They have to do a cover letter with a resume, and they have to give us 3 times they can speak for 15 minutes the next week. If they don't follow that precisely, they don't get an interview. They don't get a callback. The first interview is always over the phone, never in person. We don't want them to totally feed off our energy. The biggest way that we get candidates is we go to our quality relationships and we ask them who they know, and we get those introductions. I just hired writers that came from Hugh Stewart, a guy that I've known for 7 years now. Just an amazing prince of a man that he's like, I think this could be a good fit. She wrote for me in 2012, and then I thanked him, he thanked me because he cares about her, and like her and her daughter are now writing for me, and it's phenomenal. But I bring him through our 3-day workshop before I hire him. They get to experience that. They get to see like who we are, what we stand for. They get to meet with the rest of the team. Does the team kind of endorse them? But I'll tell you, the number one way to hire, killer vision. If you have an amazing vision and a great culture, people are seduced by that. They want to be there. Even more than the money they make, they want to be around that energy. They want to be somewhere that they really enjoy and feel like they're contributing and make a difference. And if you can help them see how they're impacting the bottom line and give them that upside potential, that's not built for everyone, but people here it is. I looked at our payroll. Our payroll last year was just under $5 million on an organization that every account that if they looked at, they're like, you can cut payroll down substantially, and we could if we went to salary, but we wouldn't give them as much of the benefit, and we wouldn't get as much of the benefit either. So we're paying a lot compared to our ultimate revenues. We're in the low 8 figures as a revenue company, and ultimately I feel good about like who's here. Like we've got people that have been here since 2005. I can think of 2 people right there. We've had coaches that have been with us since 2009. I mean, our turnover is ridiculously low. The last time someone left, we asked them to go, not because we didn't love them and they didn't love the culture. We just couldn't find exactly the right fit for them and felt like we were holding back. And I'm still really good friends with them. So I think that you got to get rid of the cancers in an organization because they drive away the very best. And that's unfortunately what people miss out on. And you got to get really good at hiring or have someone on your team that's good at hiring. Otherwise, you're going to stay stuck where you are, where it's all about the hustle and the more work that you can do to get more money. Hiring the right people allows you to step back. And when you've hired the right person, you can 100% delegate and have them own it like it's their own business and free you up. No worries in your mind. Like, if you're worried about someone when you're at home, it's time to fire them.
Wow.
And I've had to fire people after giving that advice. I was at an event where one of my camera guys was late, And I just told someone that was one of our clients, he's like, what about this? I'm like, they're not going to be an A-teamer. You're not going to groom an A-teamer. They're already in a negative place. Just cut your losses. And then I'm up there going like, where's Andrew? And couldn't find him. So when Andrew finally showed up, I said, hey man, this will be your last event. Go ahead and finish your filming, but we can't work together anymore. I can't be worried about your whereabouts when I'm up on stage, supposed to be focused with people.
That takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage. And
Firing sucks.
Firing sucks.
Firing sucks, man. I've had dudes cry in front of me during firing them. It's no fun.
Yeah.
You know? It sucks to have people not do what they're best at and have them rob your clients of experience and your own pocketbook in the name of providing for their family. That's not it's not principled.
No. But I think what drives that and what enables you to do that well when challenged is your vision again. You mentioned your vision is the ultimate way to attract a team. So tell me a little bit about your vision. I think you've mentioned also in this interview economic independence and how you want to create that with people. Right. Tell us about that vision and how you created it, how you came across it, how it's evolved over these years.
I look back at like the very first mission I wrote when I was the only one in the business. I was just a financial advisor working inside of a firm structure, but had a little bit of autonomy. And it was something about being the preeminent organization for financial services in the state of Utah, something like that. Like it was wordy, it was, standard, like being good at customer service. Then I looked at the next iteration, it was, really being a leader for individuals, families, our community, and this nation by teaching financial principles that lead to material and spiritual prosperity. So a little bit better. And I kept going. And then in 2014, having a lot of conversations with the team and letting them be part of it, we came up with liberating 1 million people by creating economic independence. And then that evolved last year to be changing families' financial futures and destinies through economic independence. And we're focused on legacy. We're focused on the individual. And it just feels inspiring. It feels right. And you get people that are like, hey, I'm going to be one of the million. And I'm going to get other people on board. And like the people we're working with feel like they're part of it. Now, to get there, we decided Wealth Factory would have to go to a bigger place than we want in these walls with the number of employees, and that could lower quality and intimacy, because I feel like we're a customer intimate kind of company. So we decided, let's start licensing and teaching this to financial people that align with our values. So we're starting to give what we do to improve an industry, and we teach this to our clients. When they hit a ceiling, like Dr. Chris Zano, who connected us, you hit a ceiling and having the biggest practice in history, or at least in North America, and you're like, okay, should I open another office? We decided with him, no. Why don't you show people how you did this? And you actually start improving the industry. So you move from B2C to B2B. And that's what we're doing right now, because I used to train financial advisors. I have a lot of equity and value and goodwill in that world. And we're just going to show them exactly how we did it. I used to have people that watched and shadowed me. I taught Chris how to do this too. They just come and watch me meet with clients. And I was in my 20s, so it brought me credibility when the person's like, this guy's 30 years old, they're coming to, and I get to work with you. So it was kind of cool, but it also helped me monetize that time at a different level. And then I had this mission-driven advisor thing that I co-created with another individual that would train them twice a month on conference calls before it was teleseminars or webinars way back in the day. And then an annual event that grew to over 100 advisors. Well, I'm a 20-year-old up there teaching, and then I ended up bringing in joint work. And so I can take all that I learned from being abundant back then, improve an industry, and I'm going to reach the million through helping other people that are good one-to-one, because we're better one-to-many. And if we team up, now they'll be more efficient and effective with every person they meet, because we can position them properly, give them the equipment and tools to educate people even more deeply, and show them the lessons that we've learned. So that's an exciting future to me. And it's fun to talk to financial guys to be like, wait, you're not trying to compete with me, you're trying to help me. And why would you share this with me? It's almost like takes them aback at first.
Especially in the financial advising market, people tend to hold their cards really tight to their chest and don't want any kind of competition to know what they're up to.
We share it all.
Yeah.
We're letting them come in and we're doing an event where they get to watch the first 2 days of a workshop that we have 80 to 93% people join our program after the workshop. And we don't sell the workshop inside, or the program inside the workshop. We do a bonus session at the end of the second day. And so far we've been getting like 100% attendance. So they're going to watch that. And on Saturday, I'm going to meet with the advisors the whole day and say, here's how we did this, and here's what we might be able to do to collaborate. We'll plug in where it makes sense, where you already have it handled, don't worry about including us, and how can we create a winning scenario together? That's how we get to the million.
I love it.
And sure, we didn't know how to get to the million when we first said it.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it a vision and not a goal. If you know how to get there, it's just a goal. A vision is beyond your reach.
And a vision, I think, especially something that you've just outlined there, saying something like kind of your first one where it's like, I want to be the best in Utah, then that's like, okay,
ego.
I'll watch you do that. But when you get a client that says, I want to be one of those people to achieve that thing, there's something bigger than yourself and something quality, again, legacy in a different sense. And that's what really makes it stand out to me.
And I got to talk to, I think it was 7 of our clients for a half a day earlier this week, just one-on-one over the phone, that had just joined our program in November. And one of the bonuses, if they joined, because it was all something we sent online where we normally enroll through a sales team, was they could do a 10-minute call with me. And I ended up doing mostly 20-minute calls. I blocked off 30 minutes for most of them, but it was really cool. Like, some people's questions were just about like me and my background. You know, some had real business questions, but we got emails, particularly from one, talking about the impact that 20 minutes had. So that felt really good, man, because I don't get a lot of that anymore. I get like the general feedback of when I speak on a stage and there's feedback forums or Amazon reviews on a book, which fortunately I don't pay as much attention as I used to. You know, my very first negative review of Killing Sacred Cows I read many a times, and my co-author, the first negative review in the St. Petersburg Times, I think it was, he wrote a letter to the editor. I mean, I was like, you know, it's like super thin skin and sensitive, and now I'm like, if we don't get some pushback, we're not doing enough. We're not taking it far enough, you know? So it's a little different now. But
that's funny. Yeah, I can remember some 1-star reviews for me on Amazon, and I'll go and like look at the person and I'll be like, they just leave 1-star reviews for everything. They're just assholes. Ah, get it all hung up on that.
Dude, what's funny is I look at some of the feedback years later and I'm like, yeah, there was some wordy chapters. Yeah, like I was making fun of what the Rockefellers do when I recorded the audiobook. I'm like, in case you didn't hear this last chapter, I'm just going to say another paragraph of the same thing I said before. So when I would catch that, like, there's some real feedback, and then there's just some people that feel threatened, and there's some people that it's just not the right concept for them at that time, you know? So it's like, you know, it's fine. I only have one 1-star review for 5-day weekend, and I just feel like, you know, why only one? There should be more.
Yeah.
Like, it feels almost we should be skeptical that there's 70-some 5-stars and only one 1-star. we gotta get some more like 4s and 3s and 2s, because you can't have, because I could give it a 4. Because I could look at that book now and say, the section 4 of that book was too fluffy, right? Or whatever. So anyway, just.
But what I love about, you know, even what you're talking about right now is, and the whole theme of this is, at your core, you've been an artist. And how you've created and how you've moved, and even what you're doing now in your company, how you've built your company to facilitate you creating art. And I'd love to kind of bring this all back around with kind of your own personal values and your own vision for your life. And again, how you've set up the business to really bring out the best in yourself. I think that it's a fascinating journey you've had.
Sole purpose is the core value. Sole purpose is values, abilities, passions combined for that vision, right? It's who we are when we're at our best. That's sole purpose, and so that's the core value. So sole purpose is about building a life you love because you're really congruent and true to yourself. So I'm really encouraging that in my kids, you know, and the second thing is quality of life. So, you know, in 2017, we spent 2 months in Europe. Took the kids, my wife, we had tons of friends come and visit along the way. We had a villa. Like, we're not waiting for retirement. We're having these experiences and then coming back into the world of value creation, right? And then last year we went for a full month, and that was great. And then this year we bought, or just at the end of last year, we bought a legacy cabin that we can go up and have these great experiences. And so we're living wealthy along the way. Like, I got to practice what I preach, you know? And so economic independence allows that. and having an organization that can operate without me. Our numbers weren't like awesome during the 2 months I was gone, but they made money because we have a team, and it does, they've got videos and they can leverage technology, and we got great marketing minds to bring that out. And we've got resources like a book. Like my marketing team sold 2,100 copies of What Would the Rockefellers Do in the last 30 days. That's phenomenal. Like I sold 22,000 copies of Killing Sacred Cows over 9 months before it ever came out. And I was just on the phone dialing and selling 100 at a time or 500 and doing a speaking gig for it. That was just part of what they were doing, not even like as much time as I was spending. And that book came out almost 2 years ago. So that's really exciting to have those kind of people around and having that kind of freedom that, my wife and I just booked a trip. We're like, let's just go have a fun weekend. And then we're going to the Indy 500 because one of our clients, her family owns the Indy 500. So we get VIP access, or, we're just doing all these things to enjoy life along the way. But I like coming back, being engaged in what I'm doing. And I think that's a big test. If you were away for 2 months, would you still want to come back to what you had created? And being away from 2 months helped me disassociate me and the business, like I'm not one and the same. It's an asset I have that I can express my artistry in, but it doesn't define who I am. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are still in their business to define who they are, because that's part of that broken, like, I'll prove, or like, what do other people think, And like, I don't compare my revenues to other revenues, my life to other lives, because people tell part of the story. Cocktail party stories, they highlight the best a lot of times, and they don't tell you about the worst. And my best entrepreneur friends, we share the scars, the mistakes, the mishaps, the bad partnerships. I really learned the lesson from here, and I think that realness, you learn better lessons from it, right? Because you're creating bonding, or you're creating jealousy. Are you saying something out of ego, or are you saying it out of accomplishment? And I think that there's a difference between that you can appreciate something or you can push something, and there's those nuances.
That's a subtle thing. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people do come from a place where they want to position themselves where it's not fully authentic and it's not fully vulnerable. And again, I feel like every time I've seen you speak or where you show up, I love to see the authenticity. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. And if anybody listening or watching right now wants to learn more about you, what you're doing, and tell us about your next book coming up too, where can we learn more about you?
I think wealthfactory.com/podcast is the best, because there's actual, real, relevant, great resources that they could put on the ground to improve cash flow today, to get depth to some of the topics we talked about. And we've created like what we call the 777, but it's 7 months where our intent is, let's give 7 major categories of value and give 7 touches per month. So every now and again there's hey, you can buy this, but we're really trying to build that relationship through that. So that'll be great. Win Then Play, I'm going to start pre-selling that book and giving a lot of cool resources. I filmed 3 webinars and have transcripts that are being kind of tidied up, and I've been writing a keynote on it. But I think that's the game-changing philosophy that shows people how to profit first from their ideas and make money now without raising money or without taking risk, and how to be a lot more resourceful. And if they think they have a money problem, it's just a symptom of 2 more precious forms of capital being mismanaged. And they're just one idea or one relationship away from that next level of prosperity. It has, legacy components, cash flow components, and a lot of business components that I think are going to give real big insight.
Garrett, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
it's been a lot of fun, and thanks you for listening. That's all.
Thanks for listening to the Story Engine podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes and resources mentioned in this episode and every episode at thestoryengine.co. If you want to tell better stories and grow your business with content marketing and copywriting, be sure to download the Content Strategy Template at contentstrategytemplate.com. This template is an essential part of any business that wants to boost their traffic, leads, and sales with content marketing. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.